Thank you for joining. I'm Joshua Lisle, the designer blacksmith, and today we're going to answer some questions. Is it worth £500? Is it better than a coal or gas forge? How much does it cost to run? What will happen if I put my ring finger inside the coil when it's on? What else do I need to buy with it to make it work? Right, let's begin with the unboxing and we'll answer all these questions. Nice. 2 coils. That's good, isn't it? So I've just been thumbing through the manual and I can honestly say this is the best manual I've ever had in a Chinese origin equipment. You know, they're obviously very proud of this product and they've given it some considerable guarantees of its performance and quality. And they've got a lot of really helpful information in here, especially when it comes to the water cooling and the type of cables you need to hook this into. We've even got like notes on, you know, if you're to make your own coils and things like that. As far as all the equipment that I've reviewed before, that is the best manual I've ever had. So, a few friends of mine have got what looks like the exact same piece of kit, but they paid a lot more money for theirs. The deciding factors on spending more was that they claimed that the internal inductors and things like that were water cooled. So I want to open this up now and see exactly what is being water cooled and list some of the components, because if something did blow up eventually and I was outside of the warranty, I'd like to know if it was a thing that could be fixed. Now, I am not an electronics expert and I won't know half the stuff that is inside this, but what I'm going to do is let all you guys see what's inside. Some of you probably will be experts and will be quite interested. So let's take all of this off and have a look inside it. Right, so this is all looking very interesting from the get-go. I can see where all the water-cooled pipes go now. So you've got a massive transformer thing happening here. But this is separately cooled to the coil that comes out the output here. So we've actually got 5 of these water cooling tubes going around. 2 are inputs, 3 are outputs. We'll get all that linked up in a minute. This looks like a transformer for the control board up here. Up here we've got a ginormous capacitor. Can't see any specs on that though. And I can see a switching relay at the back here. Now I like how all this is modular, so if one of these panels did break, I think I could get all the parts and fix those. Got the website and everything and the product code for you. Alright, let's turn this around. Whoa. So here I can see a 100 amp bridge rectifier. There's your relay switch there. This will be your flow sensor here. It's meant to be able to check the temperature somewhere and the flow. So if it's not flowing, it will cut out. If it's too high a temperature, it will give you a warning light and it will cut out, hopefully. Right, I've double checked everything and I'm really happy with what I'm seeing here now. So I'll put it back on and we'll take a look at the water cooler now. Right, now I've got it back together, I thought it'd be interesting just to show you guys the weight of it. So I've got my bag weight here. Okay, so I can confirm it weighs 24 kilograms, 52.5 pounds, I think that says. Got an extra connector there, I see. A friend of mine, Richard Bent actually, a fantastic blacksmith, he's got the exact same model as this and he rigged it all up to work absolutely fine, so I'm going to basically copy what he's done. So the only thing to note is that there's 1 inlet and 1 outlet, but there's 5, you had 3 outlets and 2 inlets on the machine itself. So we're going to have to do a little bit of plumbing work to make that happen. But it's interesting, we've got an alarm outlet here and a simple tube to tell you how full it is and the fan. Got the drain as well, but let's have a little look inside this as well. Okay, so this is quite interesting. This is very simple actually. We've got a a coil that's aluminium here. That's obviously the heat sink, so it's only simply cooled by a fan. So there's no. So I thought there might have been like something like a Peltier device, which is like an electric cooler, but I guess not. It looks like that could be easily installed though. You've got like a flow sensor here, so I think that's the thing that'll trigger the alarm if water isn't pumping through. That must be a level sensor down here if it's empty. Is there a heat sensor anywhere? Yeah, no, I can see the heat sensor and stuff down here, I think. So that's good. It's got some safety features. There's a very simple power supply though down here. I mean, that's nothing different to like your standard one you'd buy off the shelf. And you've got like a normal pump. It looks very similar to one that I've got that powers my Coke Forge. So I considered whether building one myself. And I was thinking I'd have to get like an aluminium or stainless steel tank and then put a pump on it, put a filter on it. But I think for the safety features, it's worth the money. I mean, the issue that I had is that it costs exactly the same if I bought the materials to build mine, so less the time it takes for me to build one. The materials alone cost the same as buying a full unit like this, which has made me decide to get this instead. But if it wasn't enough, I think just to get a couple of Peltier devices on here with some heat sinks would work a treat. And then you could probably upgrade this to a much more expensive unit relatively cheaply. So before I plumb and wire these two up now, I think it deserves its own dedicated trolley. So I think let's do a quick montage of me chopping up some angle iron and welding a trolley together. So there we are, here's my trolley all done now. So in hindsight though, I wish I'd put the angle iron here on the outsides facing outward. And that way I wouldn't have had to put a cutout to allow the water cooler to fit in there. It would have saved me a lot of work in that sense. But I wanted plenty of space here so that I can easily fill it with water. And also it gives me an option to put a shelf or some racking in there for the extra coils that I'll be making. And because everything's quite narrow, it's quite important to have a wider base. That way it's not going to tip over very easily, especially with swiveling wheels. They have a tendency to have that effect. But yeah, I quite like it. I'm going to get this frame powder coated the exact same color as the Induction Forge, and then I think it'll look like a 1950s early computer, I guess. So as always, use extreme caution when doing your own electronics. I can't recommend you do it yourself. I recommend that you approach an electrician to do this bit for you. But if you are a qualified electrician, do let me know what your thoughts are on how I've gone about doing this. Your input is greatly appreciated. Okay, so looking at the back of the machine, let me just show you how I've wired this up so far. So I've got 6mm wires coming in. The manual does recommend 10mm, but because there's 6mm inside it, I decided just to match it. I've put my live on the right and the neutral on the left. I've also brought the earth at the top here just so I could keep it a bit more neater. Now this box here goes to the breaker switch here and into the rest of the machine. What I don't like about this setup is the fact that it's quite exposed, as you can see. I have a little bolt here, but you know, you get anything go underneath this shroud and it's going to cause a problem. Another issue is I've got to find an alternative place to put my plug socket for the pump. So my reasoning is maybe I could combine the two. Now if I remove this setup here, take this shroud off, I might put this there instead. So this will give me some sockets for the pump and any other extra things that I might want. And then I can run the wires through this, take this part off, leave a gap there, and run the wires straight to the breaker switch. And in my mind this will be a much more safer alternative and provide a place for my socket to go. So I don't need to run any other cables other than the one main in. So this is what it looks like on the inside. You can see I've got the two feeds coming off here. So it makes sense to just get rid of this completely and have it directly hooked in. Alright, so to put in the socket system, I've drilled a hole at the back and put a rubber grommet in there. And I've got a gland that will hold the cable nicely. So it should go without saying that if you're going to attempt to do anything like this yourself, make sure you're unplugged first. But anyway, I get the cover on and then I'll show you what I'm doing down here with the pipework. Okay, let me show you the way that I've plumbed it. Now this is actually my third attempt after doing a bit of trial and error, and I've come to understand certain things. The chiller that I have chosen will produce the correct PSI, but only under certain conditions. So if you use pipe that is too big, it will simply not be enough pressure. It needs 20 psi running at 6 litres per minute minimum. So it has to be above that. The chiller is fine itself and I love all the safety features, but I might have to change the pump over just to get that pressure rating up. But instead I've experimented by choosing a thinner pipe. Now what's interesting enough is that the fittings are 1/2 inch or 12mm fittings, but the pipe work that's going on the inside is actually 10mm pipe. So this is 10mm pipe. This works better than using 1/2 inch. Let me show you though my valves here. Right, so the importance of these shut-off valves is twofold. One, when the pump is off, I'm not getting air bubbles recirculating back into the machine. It's kept full of water, so I don't have to worry about any airlocks that might happen. Now, airlocks can be a problem when setting up this, which is why I installed this pipe here, which I will show you a bit more in a moment. The other thing that these can do is, as these pipes warm up, they tend to expand just a little bit, which drops the pressure again. Now, like I said, if you have a better pump, you won't have this problem. But what I can do is just kind of half turn these valves, restricting the flow, which means that the pressure inside gets uprated. Now all I've done here is 3D printed a pipe tidy, but you just use off-the-shelf brackets for this. I just cobbled this together because I can. Right, so this pipe here, basically what happens if there is any air bubbles that form inside the machine, they tend to stay at the top here, and they don't recirculate back down, which can cause a pressure issue again. So what I've done is I've just created this pipe here with a valve at the top, and that allows bubbles to kind of flow up and then stay here, keeping the rest of the machine fully purged. And to get rid of the air completely that fills in here, I switch off all of the valves here and open this one. This allows water to circulate just through here only, all the air escapes. I then turn it off and the system is fully purged again. And again, I've just 3D printed a bracket here, and that allows me to just quickly pour off any water or get any bubbles. Like you can see, I've got one bubble in there at the moment, but that's fine. So I think something like this, or having a manifold system that is up high above the machine, is necessary for getting rid of all those airlocks. So this is my procedure to turning the machine on then. Obviously need to start the pump. When I turn it on, an alarm will go to say that it's got too much pressure, the water isn't flowing. So turn it on. Then I'm going to do the top one first. You can see I've got some bubbles escaping, and then the next ones. And I kind of have those pointed not all the way on, just enough that there's enough flow. Now after running the test, you're probably thinking I'm probably restricting the flow too much, surely it needs the flow. It may do, but there are safety switches in the machine that if the pressure was too low or it got too hot, it would automatically switch off, so I'm happy about that. Right, now to power it down, before I turn the pump off, I want to shut all these valves off, otherwise air bubbles will recirculate back into the machine. So I just switch them all off and then pump off, and that keeps everything purged, ready for next time I want to use it. So the other two pipes have directed back into the lid of the water cooler, and all I've done is I've 3D printed a TPU cap, which basically allows the hoses to pass through. Now you could easily just drill holes in the cap that is provided and put like a couple of grommets or something in it, but so I could save the cap, I just 3D printed one from TPU. Right, so the fluid that I'm using in the chiller is deionized water, which is actually purer than distilled water and doesn't electrically conduct. Now, if you're in a region that is prone to a lot of frost, you might want to put an additive in, like an antifreeze. Or a good TIG welding coolant would work absolutely fine, I believe. It's worth noting that even still, you want to replace the fluids now and again, so if there is any bacterial buildup or anything like that, you're going to get rid of that. And it also means that your pipes and everything are kept in good working order in case anything did get contaminated in there. Right, so what I've got it hooked into is a 32 amp plug with a corresponding 32 amp breaker. Now again, it's recommended that you use a 10mm wire, but I've used 6 and that's rated up to 42 amps, so I believe I'm within the safe zone. And just so you know, I'm on a domestic supply. The fuse going in is rated at 100 amps. Right, so I've managed to find a convenient space to put it, and so for reference it totals to about 290mm, or nearly a foot long for my American friends. But realistically, the length, if you were to include the pipework and the coil, you're looking at round about 41 inches, or 1m40. So I've specifically got the coil this height so that I can put bars rested on the table. This obviously pulls out, it's on wheels so it can swing round, and that way it's convenient if I want to just leave stuff in it. Right, so let's go over some of the gubbins here and see what it all does, shall we? You've got a automatic and manual switch here, obviously your main on and off. Now this is called heat power, that goes all the way to 800 amps, and you've got retain power, which is the same. Up here you've got some funny dials, they're actually timings, and then over here you've got a timer which tells you exactly how long you've been doing it for. Now, the reason why all this is on here is because these are designed for heat treatment. So essentially, you have your main power and then a sitting power, if you like. It will sit at that temperature. So you build the temperature up with your main power for a certain amount of time, and you can adjust it by pressing these dials here. So I can put 9 seconds or 99 seconds. Right, so I've set the amps on max here. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit so I don't go over temp. And I've got the retaining power set to about halfway. So we'll watch the amps. We'll let it climb up for 5 seconds and then we'll see if we'll sit it on a certain amperage. We turn it on. So they're straight up to 755 amps for 5 seconds. And now down to 320, and that will sit there for as long as I want it to, which should kind of hold the temperature for me. So that's an excellent feature. That means I can bring it up to almost a welding temperature, and then I can let it sit at that temperature for as long as I want whilst I get the other piece of steel going. So that for batch production is excellent. But if I don't want that though, I can just switch it to manual, and therefore it will only happen as I press the switch. So because my foot switch is installed, it'll only work now off the foot switch, and I'll just be manually watching it all. So there you go, lots of possibilities there. Alright then, enough chit chat. This is an 1.5" solid steel. Let's see how long it takes to heat up. I've set the machine to 800 amps. It's 10 seconds. So we've got a bright glowing orange here. 45 seconds in. Let's see if we can get it to fizz a little bit. So we're just surpassed 1 minute and we're at a very good forging temperature right now. And there we go, we're starting to fizz a bit. That'll do. So there's a good 40 millimeters of burning heat there on 1.5" solid. So it works better if you can get a coil to match what you're doing. So I'm going to use a different diameter here. This is 20 millimeter round solid. So that's 20 seconds now. That's 35 seconds. See if we can get it to fizz. There we go, now we're fizzing. A couple of more seconds and we've reached a minute. That's 1 minute, exactly. Beautiful. Right, now this is half inch round, or otherwise known as 12 millimeter. So that's 20 seconds now. Wow, and we're going to start fizzing now at 40 seconds. 50 seconds, that's plenty. So this here is 30 by 6 millimeters, or 1/4 inch thick, that is. In fact, let's try just doing it in the middle, right in the middle, and get a bend on the go. See how tight this will be. What's interesting is I can feel the resistance of the field, that magnetic field. I can actually feel it as I try to move the steel a little bit. So there we go, that's 50 seconds. 1 minute. Right, so I'll put just a little bit of a bend in, and then just so you can see, I'll reheat it up. Try that. See if I can get it to go back on itself. That alone is quite a nice feature, to be able to do an acute bend like that and not need to put it inside the coil. So look at that, that is very clean, I like that. And obviously being able to see the heat come, you know when it's ready straight away, which makes that very efficient. Right, so what you're looking at here is a meter that I've recently installed, and it's given me some great figures, and using this will work out how much it costs to run. You can see with the pump running and just the machine being idle, it's drawing about 90 watts of power. What I'm going to do is simulate a test of 1 minute, so getting the steel up to temperature, using the machine for exactly 1 minute, and then we'll see exactly how many kilowatts that's been using. So I'm going to zero my meter. So that's my meter cleared now. So I'm going to run a machine for exactly 1 minute, and then we'll see what it's been using. So exactly 1 minute passed, and we used 126 watts in 1 minute. Right, so I'm no mathematician, and so bear with me on this. Your input, just let me know in the comments if I'm accurate or not. But we did 126 watt hours within that 1 minute that we did. So if I times that by 60 minutes, that would be just over 7.5 kilowatts. So if I times 7.5 kilowatts by my rate per kilowatt that I'm paying at the moment, which I think is something now like 30 pence per kilowatt, that makes this £2.25 an hour. If I divide that by 60 minutes, this is looking like 4 pence a minute to use the thing. Alright, so if it takes a 25 or a 1-inch bar to heat up to a forging temperature in 1 minute, let's say for an example we did that 100 times in a day, which I don't think is unreasonable, that would cost me £4. So how much coke fuel would I use to do that? I reckon I could probably use about 5 kilos of fuel. So if the current rate is £15 per bag, and we have about £3.75. Now that's questionable whether I'm accurate there or not. So I think under the current energy prices, that's just as expensive to run as a normal coke forge. Except this you're getting consistency. Whilst with a solid fuel forge, it very much depends on the fuel and the operator. So looking at the footage, I peaked at 8 kilowatts and at 45 amps. And my breakers are only rated to 32. So mustn't have been consistent enough over a period of time to have tripped the breaker. So maybe I haven't got the right breaker for it. So maybe I need like a 62 amp breaker. But my breaker switch, I can't change that because it's rated to all the wiring. So I'd have to change all the wiring to up the rating if it does trip it out. But I haven't tripped it yet. So your thoughts on that? So do I see the induction forge as a viable alternative to, say, the coal or coke forge that you see there in the background? Now the short answer to that is absolutely no. But the realistic answer is that they're very different and are useful for different things. Very much similar to the way you've got a MIG welder, a TIG welder and a stick welder. Neither of those welding processes are better than the other. They're all just used for different processes. But what I can say is I'm probably going to be forging a lot more now I've got the induction forge, for a very good reason. Just to a small job, it's very impractical to light the whole forge. So what I've noticed that to fulfill the client's needs, I've actually pushed more of the fabrication side because that's something I can just chop and weld and start immediately. So unless a job pays to light the forge, or I've got enough forging work to justify spending the whole day having the forge lit, the forge is an excellent choice. I can choose whatever size heat I want. I can heat something that is 1 meter long or have something heated that is only 100 mil, 4 inches. I've got very good control on welding temperatures because basically all the oxygen is burnt up in the bottom of the fire, and then all the heat and carbon dioxide rises up to create an oxygen-free zone that is super hot, which is excellent for forge welding. As far as commercial smithing goes, it's the coal forge is essentially your stick welder. It can do nearly everything. It's very dynamic, portable even. You can take it on site with just a blower. While the induction forge, on the other hand, is very limited. You've technically got to have the correct coil for what you're using. And as you can imagine, not all shapes will fit inside a coil, so you have to have special coils. And it just simply makes the process a bit more complicated. But the precision of a short heat and the convenience of having it straight away is fantastic. For very intricate, precise work, I can compare it to a TIG welder, which is what I would still use for a lot of things. And if you go on again to a gas forge is an excellent choice if you want a big uniform heat throughout the bar. Specifically like a billet welding of Damascus steel, if you're doing blades, a gas forge is brilliant. Or having lots and lots of bits all preheated at once without you needing to worry about if they're burning or not. Gas forge is the way forward. That's your like industrial production type of device, very similar to a MIG welder would be in the welding world. The single biggest benefit to having an induction forge is the convenience. The fact I can walk into the workshop, switch it on if you like, put my piece of steel in and it will heat up straight away. For doing little bits of prototypes, all of that kind of thing is really, really handy. And that's the reason why I'm going to be forging a lot more often. So let's wrap this video up with, let's see what happens if I put my ring finger in the induction forge. Let's see that, shall we? Alright, so I'm going to put my finger in here. Right, let's switch it on. Oh, it's hot. Ah! Oh my gosh! Ah! suddenly really hungry. Oh, my finger. Oh, the bone. Oh. So that, folks, is why you would never wear a wedding ring next to an induction forge. Right, so thank you for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and if you like, and leave a comment below. I'm likely to answer it, but it really helps the algorithm push this video a bit further so it reaches more people. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't cost you anything. But anyway, happy forging a life worth living, and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.